So in this slide we can see the overall Design Modeler user interface. At the top we can see all of the toolbars which is necessary for accessing all of the key operations and for views, things like this. On the left hand side we can see the tree outline. This lists all of the commands which have been issued by the user, and also allows the user to look at the previous commands and also edit some of the previous commands as well. It also details at the bottom of the tree the current part or assembly structure. In this case we can see one part, one body and a single solid. At the bottom of the tree outline we can see the mode tabs. This allows us to switch between or cycle between the sketching and modelling modes for 2D and 3D respectively. And then at the bottom left we have a detailed view which gives more information about a particular command which is currently in progress or has been selected in the tree outline, and that allows you to use some more detailed changes to that particular operation. Along the bottom we have the status bar, which allows Design Modeler to convey to the user what is happening with the tool, whether it's waiting for information or whether it's ready and waiting for a next command, whatever status it's currently in, and just to help the user understand what is needed for the next step. We also have some entity details as well. If you click on, for example, an edge, you can report the length of the edge, or click on a solid to report the volume. It will relay some basic entity information in this field at the bottom, and then the units that we've been defined for use in Design Modeler, that have been defined in the dialog box when the Design Modeler opens up, are reiterated down on the bottom right. Of course, most of the screen is taken up with the graphics display window, and most of the time your eyes will be focused on this area and manipulating the geometry in the graphics window area. Importantly, on the bottom right you can see the coordinate system, which refers to which is relative to the geometry in question. So that's an important thing to notice when you're manipulating the geometry in the graphics window. And another thing is the measurement units on the bottom of the screen. We can get a good idea of the scale just from looking at the measurement units to ensure it's been brought in the correct units and it's in at the correct size. So we mentioned the tree outline on the left hand side. This is an important part of Design Modeler because it explains all of the commands which have been issued in order to bring the geometry to its current state. Well, not only that, it also allows you to go into those commands and change and edit those commands. So at the top, it's basically split into three parts. So at the top we have all of the planes, and when we refer to planes, we refer to we have the initial default planes, which are the X, Y, Z, X and Y, Z planes, but we can create additional planes which will appear further down in the modelling tree. But at the top we have the default planes which are generated, and of course on the planes we can generate the sketches. Further down we have all of the geometric operations, and they are listed in order that they've been executed. For example, extrude, revolve, creating a sphere. Those have all been all commands that have been issued in that order. And then at the bottom we have the bodies or parts that have been created, and this is important to understand how bodies fit with each other, and whether we're in sub-assemblies or part of a multi-body, or parts are all members of a multi-body part, for example. So we can see here just from the bottom of the tree outline how all of the different bodies are associated with each other. I mentioned that if we've performed an operation, the feature tree gives us the opportunity to go into such an operation and make some changes to it, and this really shows the capability to do that. So here we have a tree outline, and this particular geometry, the first step here has been to extrude, which is to sweep essentially to sweep a face out in order to build a volume. Now we can see if we just right click on that extrude command, we have a number of operations which appear in the context menu on the right hand side, such as inserting additional commands. We can suppress that particular command in order to remove it from the existing model, and indeed we can actually delete that command. That won't delete the geometry, but it will delete the command that's been used to bring the geometry to where it is at the current point in time. So if we remove that operation, that extrude will no longer be there, and if that extrude is used to build a solid, obviously that solid will no longer exist because the command to create it is then removed. If some of the subsequent operations rely on that previous operation and we remove it, then that will cause some problems further down. We need to make sure that we need to address those. We can also use the right mouse button on some of the parts and bodies in the part body section of the tree outline as well, and we can select specific bodies, for example, to be hidden or suppressed, and hidden will be just removed from visible view, and suppressed will be removed from visible view and also removed from the remainder of the simulation as well. But we have some additional contextual menu operations that can be performed there as well. Okay, so we mentioned about the details view in the bottom left hand side of the GUI for Design Modeler, and here we can see some more details of that details view. So we can see the feature inputs that are listed in the details view, and the second column on the right with all of the user input values or selections as necessary. So you can see the required input title on the left, and the argument or the value or specification from the user on the right hand side. If you want to go into any of these particular entries in order to edit them, you just need to click on the cells on the right hand side, and typically you'll see some more options or a drop down menu depending on the particular detail of interest, and then you'll have some more options to change it to something else before then going back and regenerating the model in order to bring it back up to its new state. If the box is yellow, then that indicates that some information is missing, and Design Modeler requires some information to be inputted into the box in order to make the details of that particular feature complete. So here's an example of selecting a particular feature and going into the details with the details view on that particular feature. So in this case we've selected a feature called Extrude 1. I mentioned an extrude is a sweep type operation on the surface in order to build a volume, or a pad type operation, if you're more familiar with CAD. And we can right click on the details extrude and edit those extrude details. So on the right hand side here we can see all of the details of the extrude, and we can go in and modify some of those details. Now some of it we can't modify, and you'll see that as grey colour details that we can't modify, but other sections we can modify, and we could change directions for extrude or extrude depth, or all of these types of operations can be done from this details menu. And all of the details that have been created can be previously can be modified, and that is also done from the details view panel. So we mentioned about the status or information bar that resides at the bottom of the Design Modeler GUI. That contains some important information on the status, entity details, and the units that have been defined in the current project. And really these are important areas to keep an eye on. Probably more so the status information bar, because that will span across multiple types of models and geometric operations. So if you're creating, the example here is creating a box, and if some of the information is missing, it will state down in the status bar at the bottom here that it requires additional information, and then you can, once you've spotted that, you can then follow that up in the details view or in the tree menu in order to understand what is then needed by Design Modeler in order to progress and complete the model. And you may find the entity details menu useful as well, where status region at the bottom there useful as well, where if you're looking for information about volumes or lengths of edges and things like this, that might also be quite a useful tool to keep an eye on as well.